Yo, what's going on guys, Tanmay here for Simple Snippets and welcome back to another video tutorial on dynamic web application development using ASP.NET with C# programming and MS SQL as the database along with Bootstrap for front-end styling. And as the title of the video suggests, in this video tutorial we're going to be taking a look at the user as well as admin login page, and we're going to develop the code which will perform database connectivity to log in a user, whether it is a normal user or a member or an admin. And this is the part 1 wherein we are just going to perform the login activity. And in part 2, we will see how, depending upon which user is logging in, we are going to use the session variable to find out which user has logged in, whether it is a normal user, whether it is an admin or a normal regular member. And depending upon that, do some functionality. Okay. Now, before we start off with the coding, that is the backend database connectivity, I just want to show you our dummy website and show you what exactly happens when a regular member or a admin logs in. So first, whenever a user will come on our eLibrary management system website, he or she will have to first sign up. Now, if you've missed the previous video tutorial in this course, we've completely developed the sign up page using which we registered 2 users in the database. So let me just quickly show you that. So if you go to the MS SQL Management Studio, in the databases, in the eLibrary DB tables, and in the member master table, if I say select top 1000 rows, there you go, you can see this is what we registered in the previous tutorial. I registered 2 users, and of course we did not do the validations. As I mentioned, I will be doing that in the further tutorials as we move ahead. But now what we will do is we will log in a regular member. Let's say we want to log in with Tanmay Sakpal. So here you can see the member ID TS11 and password 123. So we're going to use this to log in this regular member, and we are also going to use the admin login. So for admin, what I've done is I've created a separate table, and if I select values, I can see that I've added 1 user. Now when it comes to admin, we have to manually add 1 entry in the database ourselves via the backend itself, because obviously on the front end on the website, we do not have a sign up for admin, right? We have directly admin login, because obviously we don't want to give any random user the access to register himself as admin. So that is only handled by backend. So that's why 1 entry has to be added manually by us in the database. And now if you see the website, this is what the website looks like whenever you open the website for the first time. You can see we are getting user login and sign up. Now this is the demo website. This is not the one which we are developing. This is the complete developed website which I'm just showing you to demonstrate how the working would go. So when you first enter the website, these are the 3 links that are visible, and over here we are only getting admin login. Remember, we have other links related to admin functionality like book inventory, member management, publisher management, and so on. But those are hidden initially because nobody is logged in yet. So first, if I go on user login, this is for the regular users, that is the regular members of this website, whoever have signed up. So let's say I'm saying TS11 and 123. Let me just log in. And when I log in, now you can see the user login link got hidden. The sign up link also got hidden. But instead of that, now we have a logout link and we have a welcome message saying hello TS11, which is the username via which I logged in. So you can see 2 links got hidden and 2 links newly got visible now. Similarly, if I scroll down, the admin login is as it is because we logged in as a regular member and not as an admin. Okay. Now when I click on logout, again now you can see user login has come back and sign up has come back because I've logged out. Let me just show you the admin login. Now when I go on admin login, I'm just again gonna log in with the same username. And when I click on admin login, I'm again getting 2 new links over here with the logout link. So user login is gone. And I'm getting a message of hello admin. So user sign up is also gone. Okay. Now if I scroll down, since I have logged in as an admin, I'm getting all the admin related links via which I can perform author management, publisher management, book inventory, and so on and so forth. And you can see now the admin login link is gone, which was alone over here because now the admin has already logged in. So why does he want to see the admin login again, right? So this entire functionality is what we want to implement in our project. This is the already developed version. So I hope you've got an overview about what we're going to do. And that's why I've made 2 parts of this. In first part, we're just going to do the login. And in second part, we will add this functionality of hiding the links and making some links visible depending upon which admin has logged in and which not. And we'll also use the session variables. So that would be important. But in this video, we're going to do the database connectivity. Now to just give you a summary, I'll portray some graphics over here. Initially, we get the basic website. Let me just log out. Initially, we get the basic website. Then depending upon which user is logging, whether it is a regular member or an admin, we have 2 separate pages. For user login, we have user login.aspx. For admin login, we have admin login.aspx, right? Now, depending upon which user is logged in, whether it is a regular member or a admin, those related links will get visible and some related links would get invisible. And that's the overall functionality that we want to implement. The way we're going to implement this is obviously going to do the database connectivity, connect with the database, check if the particular user is there in the database or not. But along with that, we are also going to use session variable to store the different role. So a regular member will get a role of a regular user and a admin will get a role of admin, right? So we're going to use this session variable to store which type of user has logged in, and depending upon that, we're going to hide and unhide those links. That's the whole idea. So now let's actually jump to our project and let's go to the user login page. We'll start with user login first. Okay, so this is our user login.aspx. Now we've completely developed all the pages in this tutorial series in this course. So if you've made it so far, everything should be done for you except the backend coding. The front end coding is done. That is, the designing is done. And this is the login page. Now, previous video tutorial, we did the sign up page as I mentioned, and I've already run this in our Chrome browser. So this is the result. Right now, if I click on login, obviously nothing is happening because we still have to write the code behind the login. So let's go ahead and do that. Coming to the code, if I double click on this button, you can see the button click event is firing, auto generated for us, and user login.aspx.cs file is what we are dealing with to handle the backend code. Okay, so we have user login.aspx, which is the front end styling, and to do the coding in C#, we have another page. So if you go in the solution explorer also, if I just expand this is the user login.aspx, which is the CS file. Okay, similarly we did this with the sign up page also. If I go on signup.aspx, this is the code that we wrote. So I'm assuming if you watch that, this should be understandable. So let's copy this response.write method over here and just let's go ahead and user login and print it to check whether everything is working. So I'll say button click. Okay, let's save this. Let's refresh. And there you go. Button click is working. Hit OK. Things are working fine. Now we can go ahead and start with the database connectivity and log in a particular member. Also, when I say a user or member, it pretty much means one and the same. That is user login and member login. So don't confuse between the two words. A user of our website and a member of our website is one and the same thing. Okay, so let me just comment this out. Now, if you have seen the sign up page, of course, the first thing that we have to do is we signed up a user. So if I go to the database and if I just go on the member master table and fire a select query, we have two members, right? Now I want to log in with Tanmay Sakpal, whose member ID is TS11 and password is 123. So when I hit TS11 and password as 123 and when I click on login, what should happen? We have to do the database connectivity. We have to connect with this database and we have to go in this table, member master table, and check whether an entry with this member ID, that is TS11 and password 123, exists or not. And if it exists, then we have to show a successful login prompt. And if it doesn't exist, we have to show an invalid member prompt, right? So how will the query look like? I would say select star from member underscore master underscore table, where member ID is equal to TS11, and so we have an AND clause because along with the member ID, the password also should match, right? So we have an AND clause. I hope you know the basic select queries and the where clause and all. If not, just Google it out. So we have AND password is equal to, we know the password over here is 123. So we are just hard coding the values, and if I execute this, you can see I'm getting one entry. Also, when I'm executing any query, make sure your appropriate database is selected over here. So right now we are working on eLibraryDB. Sometimes this might change to master and your query will not work. Anyways, now you can see that when I hard code these values, obviously I'm getting one entry. Let's say if I make a mistake and do some wrong password, and if I execute now, I'm getting no entries or no records. So we are going to use this query and this logic, but obviously this TS11 and password will be coming from these text boxes. That's what the coding is all about, right? So it makes it dynamic. So now let's go ahead and do the database connectivity. Now the first thing to do is to get the connection string. Now if you followed the previous tutorials, we know that we have the connection string stored in the web.config file. Let me just show it to you. This is the web.config file. Over here we've added this connection string. We've given it a name of con. The connection string is something that I've extensively talked about in previous tutorials. I'm not going to waste time. So if you go in the sign up page, if you scroll up, which we've already developed, we have created this strcon string. We will just copy this, go to the login, And a lot of things are going to be repetitive, so make sure you watch the previous video and in sequence if you are like completely new to this. And we have to declare this inside the public class and not after the namespace. So here I have already created this string. Okay, so we get the connection string from using this configuration manager class, which is coming in this namespace. If you don't have this namespace, you'll get an error, but what you have to do is you have to simply go and hover on this and hit the bulb and click on using namespace.system.configuration. This is that namespace, and I hope you know what our namespace is in C#. It's something which is pretty much similar to packages in Java. So namespaces have collections of different classes and objects which we can directly use. So we are using this class and we are using this connection strings property, and we are getting the connection string whose name is con. So this con is something that we have named our connection string in the web.config, right? So this is the name. So first thing done, we created a string which is storing the entire connection string. Now in the button click event, what do we have to do? We have to perform the database connectivity. So how do we go about that? So first things first is we have to use the try catch block whenever we are performing database connectivity. It is always a good habit because a lot of times runtime exceptions and some weird exceptions show up when you're doing the database connectivity. So it's always a good practice. Okay, so create the try catch block. This is the user login button click event, and we will also create some user defined functions later on. So in the try catch block, obviously first thing is to create a connection object, and to do that we use another class which is SQL connection con. So this is SQL connection is an inbuilt class which is used to perform the connection, or which actually gives the connection object, and we have to pass the connection string over here in the constructor. Again, if you get an error on this class, just hover on it. You'll be shown with a bulb and include that appropriate namespace. These are the namespaces which we are using. That is system.configuration, system.data, and this system. So make sure you add that. So first things first, we created the connection object. Next step is to check if the connection is closed. So to do that, we use this syntax. We say con.state. So we want to check the state of the connection. Is it open or closed? And we check it with connection state.closed. If it is closed, then we have to open it because we want to connect with the database, obviously. If it is already open, then this if block will not be executed. We don't have to bother about that. Go down over here. And this is again similar to what we were doing in sign up also, right? So if you go into the sign up page, this is pretty much the same thing. So we can also copy this entire command from over here. So next thing is we need to type in the query. So for typing the query or typing the SQL command, we use a class called SQL command, which is again an inbuilt class. We say new SQL command, and it takes two parameters, which is first as the actual query and the second is this connection object that we created. So using this connection object, this command will be fired via this CMD object. Okay. So here is where we actually type the query. So let me just copy this. So the query will be something like select star from member master, where member ID equals to, and this value is going to come from the text box, right? So instead of TS11, that is hard coding the value, I'm going to add double quotes, and over here I'm going to say plus plus. And if I go on the user login front end ASP page, the member ID is coming from textbox 1. So you can see this is the ID over here. So that I have to say textbox1.text.trim, because I'm using trim function to trim out any blank spaces at the start or at the end of the text. So blank spaces will be removed. So member ID is equal to textbox1, and password also I have to change. So instead of hard coded value, I'll say double quotes. Inside that I'll say plus plus, and now this would be textbox2.text because the ID of textbox which is taking the password, if I go over here, is textbox2. Okay. So this is the only change. We are just changing the query. Everything else remains the same. Again, go to sign up page. Let's see what is happening. Over here, we're using a disconnected architecture. That's why we're using data adapter. So if you don't know what is connected and disconnected architecture, in short, what happens is in disconnected architecture, you connect with the database, you get the record and you disconnect yourself. But in connected architecture, what happens is the connection remains open. You keep firing the query and the query goes ahead with some other class, which is the data reader. So reader keeps on reading the table and fetching it live when the connection is open. Over here, what we're doing is we are completely fetching the table data and filling another data table object in the program itself. So the connection can be closed by default. Okay, that's the difference. If you want to read about it, I'll drop some theory. And in fact, what we'll do is just to showcase how the connected architecture works, I'm going to use the data reader this time. Okay, So the next step is obviously we want to fire this query, right, in the database. So as I mentioned, we have to use another class when it comes to connected architecture, which is known as the SQL data reader class. So I'm going to create an object of SQL data reader, and now I'm going to say cmd.executeReader. So this query will be taken and this connection will be used, and then this command will be executed. As I mentioned, cmd.executeReader will execute this query. Okay. Now the data reader is actually connected with the database and it is reading what this query is returning. So now the next thing is we need to check whether we are getting some data or not. Depending upon which value is entered, let's say if I enter TS11 and 13 as the password, I will not get any record. But if I say the correct password and the correct ID, and if I execute this, I will get one record, right? So this is the logic. So depending upon what I enter in this front end text boxes, I will get either one record or I will not get any record. So that is what we want to determine over here. So how do we go about that? So we have to use a simple if statement, and we have to say dr.hasRows. So this is an inbuilt property again of this dr object, which gives either true or false depending upon whether there is some record coming in or not. So if we enter anything wrong, that is any wrong ID or password, we will not get any row, right? As I was showing in the database also, if I enter wrong ID or wrong password, because we have an AND clause, so anything wrong in both these columns, we will get no record. So we will get no rows basically. But if we put everything right, we will get one row. So this hasRows will become false if we don't get any row, right? And it will become true if we get any row. So this will become true and if block will execute only when we have the correct entry, right? So inside that, now we have to read that row. The data reader is still connected to the database, to that data table, because it is a connected architecture, right? So now we have to say while dr.read, which means while the data reader is reading all the data from the database. So this is directly from the database. We are not copying all the data into a data table and we are not doing the disconnected way, right? So right now the data reader is still pointing to the database and it is pointing to that row. So we are saying while dr.read, let's actually print a message. We'll say response.write. And over here inside this response, what we will do is we will say double quotes plus plus, and I'm going to say dr dot, so this is the data reader object, dot get value. So right now what is happening is the data reader is pointing at the row which we've got from the table. So in that row, what I want is I want the member ID right now. So member ID is at what position? If I start from 0, obviously it starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So at 8th position, right? So I'm going to say dr.getValue at 8th position, and I'm going to say .toString. Okay, so I'm going to just convert it to string. So this will only execute when obviously the data reader is pointing to some row, which means that we have logged in successfully. So I'm just printing out to test, because right now we just want to test the login feature. And in the else part, when it will not have any row, so I'll also have the else part. Over here we can say response.write invalid user or invalid credentials, right? Let's save this and let's actually see if this works, because that's pretty much it for the login activity. Of course, in part 2 we will use this login feature and we will add or enhance some code using the session variable. So we've not completely done yet. So let's actually refresh, and right now let's actually enter some wrong details. So let me just first do select star from member master, and these are the two valid users, right? So let's actually log in with this row, that is username Sachin, that is full name. His user ID is SA12. So let's say SA12, and password is blank. We've not done validations, that's why it is letting us enter a blank password. We'll do that in future, and I'm gonna keep it blank. Let's log in, and now you can see I'm getting SA12, which means that we are executing the if block. If I say okay, let me just enter something wrong, and now if I say login, I'm getting invalid credentials, which means our code is working perfectly fine. So far so good. This is the login part for user, for a regular member. When I say user, it is a regular member, okay? And this is happening on the button click event. Now similarly, this same code will apply for the admin login. For admin login, we have a separate page, right? So let's go on the admin login. Let's go on the design. I'm double clicking on the login page, and then button click for the admin login is fired. So I'm literally going to copy everything from user login because the login functionality is going to be exactly same, except that the table is going to change, right? For an admin, we have a separate admin table. So that's the only thing that's going to change. So let's go to userlogin.aspx. Let's copy things from over here. Let's copy the string strcon, and this will be again a practice to you. And you can see I've already created it over here on the top. By the way, I would highly recommend that you type it for the first time if you're an absolute beginner. And obviously I'm going to be sharing all the code also in the video description, so you'll get the entire code. But I would highly recommend that you type the code entirely for the first time. So from the user login, next thing that we have to do is we have to simply copy this entire try catch code which has the database connectivity and just paste it in the button click event. That's about it. The only thing that changes over here is select star from this table name, right? So the table name over here for us is admin table. Let's do select top 1000 rows, and you can see we are getting TS11, password is 123, full name is Tanmay. That's what I've hard coded over here. Added one entry. Copy this, paste it over here, and now the member ID column changes to username. So I hope you have created all these tables, and make sure you don't make any mistakes in typing the column name. Don't make mistakes or typing errors, because if you pass any wrong name over here in the query, you will not be able to run this. You'll get a exception, you'll get some issues, or you'll get some exceptions in the catch block. Okay, so you can actually print an exception over here also just to see if you get any errors. So it's always good to have details about what exception you're getting. So in the single quotes, inside that we'll also add double quotes, plus plus, we will say ex dot message, which will give us the message exactly what is happening. Anyways, this is the username, and then we have the password. So the password column is as it is. And again, for the admin login also, admin ID is coming from text box 1. So let's see. Admin ID is coming from text box 1, password is coming from text box 2. So there's that. Pretty much everything is going to be the same. But inside the data reader also we have to make one change, because now we have to say dr.getValue, and now I want the username, right? It is at the 0th position only. I don't want to give 8. So I'm going to make the change over here as 0. So data reader is going to go to that row and then go to at the 0th column and get that value. Let's save this. Let's refresh the admin page now. We are at the user login right now. Let's go to the admin login. Okay. Let's enter something wrong first. Let's say 123 123. Invalid credentials. Now let's enter the right values, which is TS11 and password is 123. So TS11, password 123. If I click on login, there you go. Now I'm getting the username as it is. So now you can see that the admin login and user login is working perfectly fine, which means we've already done half of the login part, because we are now able to check from the database whether a user exists in the database or not for the admin as well as the regular member. So I'm going to wrap this video over here. This is the part 1. In part 2, what we're going to do is we're going to enhance this code, and depending upon which user is logging in, whether it is a regular member or an admin, we are going to add some role value in session variable. So quick note, if you want, just Google what is session variable. If you don't know, just read a little bit of theory. And later on when we come on the home page, depending upon an admin login or depending upon a member login, we are going to enable those links from the master page. So for admin login, we need to enable those links in the footer, right? Which was related to admin task. But if it is a regular member, we want to hide those links. So we don't want to show the regular user all those links. So that feature we will do in part 2, which is going to be the next video. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. I hope you've understood this user login creation in ASP.NET. You can use this module in your other projects also. It's obviously going to be helpful in pretty much all projects wherever there is a sign up and member login functionality. So the sign up and login is pretty much generic to many other projects also. So the same methodology can be implemented over there. And yeah, that's it for this video, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps the video. Let me know in the comments how this video was. Do share it with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notifications for the next video. If you're watching this in future, the video already must be there in the entire playlist. I'll drop that in the video description. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.